To start the mini stocking project, print off the template from the website listed below. This has a mini stocking template for the main piece and then a tab. So we're going to cut out 2 layers from the main fabric and 2 layers from the lining fabric. So your main fabric needs to have one mirror image of the other. So you can cut them on the fold and that will give you 2. And same with the lining fabric. They need to be mirror image of each other. Okay, and then the interfacing, I already interfaced these, so just fuse your interfacing to the back of your main or lining fabric. It really doesn't matter which one you fuse it to. And then I'm gonna give this other fabric a little press. And then to assemble the tab, we're gonna first fold in the fabric to the center and press. And then we're gonna fold it in half again and press. And then to finish the tab, just sew along those folded open edges, that open edge. Just sew right there about 1/8 of an inch from those edges. After you've sewn that, just set your tab piece aside for now. And then we're going to sew the main and the lining fabrics together. So sew both main fabrics right sides together. We're going to use a 3/8 inch seam allowance and just sew around the entire stocking. And then whichever one you've decided is your lining, we're going to leave an opening at the back of the stocking where it's straight, about 2 or 3 inches. And that will be for turning. So go ahead and sew those 2 pieces together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Once you've done that, bring your stocking pieces back and we're going to trim and clip the main seam allowance. If you are making this reversible, then you'll want to do this for both of your pieces. But if you're not, just trim and clip the seam allowance of the main piece since the lining won't really be showing. So this is my main fabric and I am trimming it down to about 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then I'm going to clip all the curves so that it is a little bit flatter when we turn it. So use the edge of your scissors to clip the curves, but don't clip past the seam allowance. This is a little bit tedious, but it makes a huge difference, so don't skip out on this step. So clip all those curves. You'll also want to notch out some of your curves, and an easy way to do that is to use pinking shears, and these trim down your seam allowance and clip it at the same time. Leave your lining fabric inside out and turn your main fabric right side out. And then we're going to stick the main fabric inside the lining. It doesn't have to be perfect except for at the top, and we need to make sure the toe is where the toe of the lining is. So we're going to stick that in there and pin along the top. But before we do that, we're going to add the tab. So the tab is going to be folded in half, and we'll just stick it inside, upside down at the back here. And I'm going to pin that right in there. And then when we sew the tops together, we'll catch that tab, and then it'll have a little hanging tab when we open it back up. So match up the side seams here, and if you flip them in opposite directions, that'll reduce the bulk a little bit on your seam. And then go ahead and sew around this top seam 3/8 inch all the way around. And remember, we have a hole right here for turning, so we don't need to worry about that. So I've sewn the tops together all the way around, and then I'm going to use my hole in the lining to turn my stocking all the way out. And then if you want to keep this reversible, you can close the opening here with a ladder stitch and a hand needle, and thread, but if you don't, then just go ahead and stitch that up on your sewing machine. You can flatten it out and press it, and then just give it a straight stitch here, about 1/8 of an inch from the edges. I'm just going to make sure I have pressed out my toe before I do that though, because it's just easier when you can access the inside here. So I'm going to press out. You can see our stocking starting to come together. Okay, so go ahead and stitch up this little spot. Now with that stitched up, we're going to push the lining into the main fabric and just kind of try to get it down in there, and then push the toes out together. This is a little bit tricky because the stocking's so little. Okay, and once you've done that, you can use your iron to kind of help press it and make it look really nice. And then your stocking is done. And if you want to add a little bow or something, you can add some ribbon. Or in my blog post, I show you how to add little felt balls to make it really cute.